All right. I'm still admitting. Okay, a lot of people are joining today. So, good evening, everyone. So, thank you for joining us tonight in this wonderful conversation with lovely ladies, which we will be presenting tonight. And we hope we will have a good time tonight. So, as an introduction, I haven't, the first time I met Betty was when I read her book a few months, more than a few months ago. And I saw her book posted by her son. And then I emailed her, and then we immediately resonate with each other. And then she introduced to me her good friend Josephine. And then we had a series of email conversations until today that we have a webinar, or we don't call it a webinar actually, it's just a conversation. We're just gonna share our journey, and we will have also this our facilitator, moderator for today, all the way from Maya Earth Village, Palawan, Philippines. Yay! Graciele Burman. Hello, Graciele. Can you unmute? Can you unmute, Gra? You are muted.
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
So
Okay.
welcome to the space, you all. Thank you for being here and for sharing all of this exciting energy. Yeah, the topic is quite a big topic, and so we kind of have, first of all, we kind of have a small structure on how to run the space. So we'll ask you we'll ask you all to mute your audio while the participants are talking, and then we're gonna have some sharings and some questions. And throughout the 30 minutes, the last 30 minutes, we're gonna open the space for questions. So you can raise your hand or unmute, and then we can ask questions to the participants and for whoever is in the space also. If you wanna cross questions, it's also okay, no problem, okay? Right?
Right. Yeah, the audio is a little bit, okay.
Okay. Doc, do you want to start? Anyone wants to start or start?
Okay. Yeah, I will start. Okay. So again, this is a beautiful conversation, I believe, because it is about our journey of transformation. It is a continuing process, not an end result. We are not here as perfect individuals. We are here as imperfect as we are. And we are so glad that this conversation is right now. And thank you very much to our sharers this evening, Josephine and Betty from Malaysia and Singapore, and of course Graciele. And with me together right now is my wife. We are
Hello,
both.
everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
We are both using one computer, so we are in one screen. We are both medical doctors who are also trying in the past many years to evolve as conscious human beings. So Graciele will be guiding us throughout this conversation, and along the way, maybe in the latter part, of course, it will turn out, hopefully we can turn it out into like a fishbowl conversation, meaning we will be open to the sharing also, or comments or questions of the other participants who are here with us right now. All right, so Graciele.
Okay. So thank you for also inviting me to be part of this beautiful meeting. I am from Brazil. I'm a former English teacher, and 2 or almost 3 years ago, I left Brazil and I started backpacking, and I ended up in the Philippines. And right now it's been 1 year since I've been living here in Maya Earth Village. It's an eco village, or a project of an eco village that has been running in the Philippines for almost 10 years already. It was developed and thought of by Pai. He's the main inner dance facilitator, and he's been working a lot with projects around, sorry, I forgot the word, projects around natural disasters, and always trying to find ways to help the community, uh, enhance community living around the world. So Maya is 7-hectare piece of land. We have some permaculturalists living here, midwives, people from the Philippines, from Germany, Finland, Brazil, and England also. So we are all living here together. We developed some activities in the beginning of in the beginning of the year, uh, when we got struck by COVID. We started developing a project to enhance the soil fertility in the village. So we started collecting cow manure from all the area, and in return we were giving rice to the community because they didn't have rice to they didn't have actually much money, and the support from the government was not enough for all the families. So we started trading cow manure from rice, and then from that point on, the project just took other perspectives. And right now we are on the third wave of the project. So it became now a nerd school. We're holding some activities for the kids here in the village every Monday. Uh, yoga classes, permaculture classes, cooking classes, all based on contributions from people from all around the world. And yes, project keeps going on, Maya keeps on going. And I guess that conscious, when you ask a person what is to be a conscious person in 2020, or how do you actually define what conscious is? That's a big question. Oh, sorry. It's a big question, especially because it is hard for one person only to define what to be conscious is and to claim to be conscious. So I guess this space is actually an open door for us to look at our own journeys and to look at how we as a person, as an individual, how we have been developing and how we have been walking through ways that in a way we feel more aligned to, and that allow us to actually become more conscious and more aware of us as a human being that lives amongst others. And that implies so many layers. There are so many layers that are unveiled when you start looking at your own journey and how you become what you have become, how you have achieved everything you've achieved, and what are the new ways one must open to actually find other paths that are in a way uh, more aligned to what an inner truth would be. So basically for me, when we think of consciousness and how to be or what to be, what does it mean to be conscious? It is opening up for the community around you and for you at the same time, knowing your own history, knowing the consequences or the effects of your own history, everything that came before you and everything that is coming after you. And that means looking at your food, looking at your relationship with your parents, the relationship with your friends, the relationship you have with Mother Nature, the relationship we have with every single being that is living around us. And this is actually why, when I say that's a huge topic, is because I understand that when you look at every particular moment or every particular sphere of this relationship of what to be a human being, is your food, your work, your relationships, your thoughts, your aspirations, all of that, they bring up so much of political issues. It's not just you as one, but bringing up political issues means bringing up all the world around us, politically, environmentally, spiritually. So being conscious is actually, from my very individual and sometimes tiny point of view, it's actually opening up your eyes wide open and trying to find some better ways to actually connect with everything. For example, on my personal history, um, I've stopped for single small actions, changing the use of plastic toothbrush for bamboo toothbrush, which is already speaking a lot. It's already changing a lot of the plastic consumption, the money you put into companies. So single actions like that are just an umbrella of other actions. So then here I am with these amazing people who have been working so much already they have so much experience. And then I look at it, okay, this is what to be conscious for me is. But then having the opportunity to exchange what is for a doctor that works with transformation medicine to be conscious. What does it mean for a doctor in 2020, knowing how the how the sorry, I often forget the translations from Portuguese. Knowing how the health system is nowadays, what is it to be conscious? And the same goes for Betty, who used to be a lifestyle editor, right, Betty? It's like a huge change. So what were those paths? What were those connections that you started to make as a former lifestyle editor to become somebody conscious? What does it mean then in your own process? And also for Josephine, who comes from the pharmacy industry, which is like, wow, how does a pharmacist that comes from a place that is very much known as not the most conscious organically sphere of society, what does it mean to break through and to find consciousness in this way? So I guess that I talked a little bit about my own perspectives because I feel that since the main topic is conscious, how to evolve as conscious human beings here, I think we would like to hear from all of you three. What is it then for you, coming from the places you're coming? What is it to be conscious? So maybe I pass the ball to Betty. If you want to talk a little bit, what is to be conscious for you and your own journey throughout this beautiful path of life?
Thank you, Gra. Well, to me at this stage now, I'm 77, and it's been a very long up and down journey, many challenges, of health, divorce, remarriage, and 10 years in the Northern Territory, the bush country of Australia. That was another, it was not a challenge so much as an awakening as to a very different lifestyle. You see, formerly I was editor of a lifestyle magazine, and the lifestyle magazine was full of glossy advertisements. Buy me, eat me, wear me. I didn't realize that some people had 25, 30 watches. I didn't realize that. I said, all you need is one watch. I was so unconscious even then. Really? And then suddenly, when I married my second husband, Richard, and we went to live in Australia, as I said, the bush country, these friends were barefoot. They didn't have a watch. They didn't have a handbag. They didn't have anything that was the designer. And then I realized what really matters. And it made me very aware. Of course, I had to be like them. Otherwise, I would not be accepted. And we had fun. I was very stressed out, very burnt out. as a high-flying executive. I traveled, but very early on, when I was much younger, I had tuberculosis, but I overcame that. And then subsequent to that, I actually had what they call an anxiety depression. So I became a soft drug junkie. But it was actually very, very open doctors, alternative doctors, who helped me through that journey to make me realize that you just have to get rid of the drugs. I went cold turkey and then I felt like death warmed over, and I could understand. I can now empathize with people who are very addicted, whether it's to coffee, whether it is to gambling or whatever it is. But we must break that. And how do we break it? It's only through a living plant diet, not just plant-based. Plant-based is not good enough. It's a living plant diet. So when we do that and we become very, very conscious, then what we do is we realize, we're aware that we are one with all of nature. There's no separation between us and the animals. How can we eat them? They are our kin. They are our brothers and sisters. You know, even Oprah Winfrey on her program, when she learned that pigs are one of the most intelligent animals, she said, oh my God, if I eat ham or pork, I would be eating my 3-year-old niece. You know, so that kind of awareness makes you, oh God. Then again, I started to learn about environmentalism, how terrible globalization is firsthand again, because I started a biodynamic network, and then we were together with permaculture people, and I was also a representative of the Biodynamic Association from the South, represented in Northern Territory. We were with the Herb Group, and my mentor then was Lila Notley, a so-called housewife who had cancer. And when she had cancer, she said, look, doctor, I am not sick. I only have cancer. And what we need to do is to get all the farmers now to grow organic food, to turn vegetarian. That is the kind of journey. So as I dug into the roots of our sickness, of body, mind, and spirit, I realized how to activate. I started to learn how to activate self-healing. So I have no medicines, I have nothing. Okay, thank you. Over to Josephine.
Wow. Actually, my journey, my quest to into this into this process of seeking truth actually came about when I was very young. But that time, my dad just passed it off as myself being inquisitive. And as life would have it, right, I did everything that society thought that that would be the pathway to graduate and then to get married and then to be successful in life. Soon after that, when I had what I had, I realized that I wasn't any happier. And it was also during that time when the business grew big that me and my husband actually grew apart. And as a result, I went through a difficult period. And from there, I wanted to know what it really meant, you know, to be happy in life and to be successful in life. My journey just started with that simple thought, what it really means to be really happy. And I did a lot of work. The good thing about my journey was that I was willing to try out. I was very open. I went to many teachers. I had explored many things, and only to realize that I had that experience myself. The only way I could overcome my pain, my emotional pain, was to seek out the true solution. And the true solution was actually within myself. That one really sparked off everything. When I realized that, oh, the true solution lies within all of us. Now the question is, how do we access this uh, intelligence within ourselves? And that started me going, and it led me to yoga, and it led me to my current teacher, Sadhguru, and it has taken me to my practices. Because just now I heard Gra mention this. How is it? What kind of tools do we seek out in order to help us, ex, deal with whatever challenges that we need to deal with? So essentially, my entire journey made me realize that there is only one parameter which I need to look into whenever I have a challenge, and that parameter is myself. And the second thing is, how do I develop this self so that it becomes more better able to respond to things around us? And that's when I realized a regular, simple spiritual process on a daily basis really helps a lot. Because this, I'm speaking from my own experience. When I see many, many things around me happening to people, to the world, I do ask myself, how can I make the world a better place? If I do not equip myself first and settle myself first and ground myself first and have the clarity to respond to situations, then I may become the problem instead of the solution. So I must make sure that I am not the problem and always the one offering the solution. So it has always been my premise until this very day. That has served me well throughout my journey. I don't have all the answers yet. I'm still seeking and I'm still empowering myself. So that is my little sharing. Over to you, Dr. Romy.
All right. Okay. Wow. What a wonderful sharing by two wonderful ladies from Singapore and Malaysia. My journey started when I finished, when I was at the last years of my medical school. Because in my last years of medical school, it was very stressful because we have to memorize a lot of medicines. And yeah.
Me too.
Yes, you too. And then I started having, and I'm not shy to share this, I started having severe panic attacks. Maybe I was so full in my head psychologically because I had to memorize a lot of details to the point that my energies became imbalanced and I was suffering from severe panic attacks to the point that I was already taking a medication. I was taking a drug. So when I finished medical school, I have a lot of questions in my head. Why were we trained just to treat the symptom of every disease of the patient? Why were we trained just to prescribe a drug for every disease that a patient will be diagnosed with? Why did it take us, it took us 10 years to become a full-fledged physician, a full-fledged medical doctor, but along the way, especially in the third year, fourth year, fifth year, the last 3 years of medical school, we are greatly influenced by a very big industry. So I have so many questions. Why do people get sick? What is healing all about? What is the difference between curing and healing?
Yeah.
So with all those questions in my head,
Yes.
I decided to walk the less traveled road of medicine because I was searching for the magic drug to cure this disease or that disease, but I was never able to find that magic drug because I ended up prescribing a drug to a patient, and I tell the patient, because that was how I was trained, I tell them, you have to take this drug for the rest of your life. It's something like, in the beginning, I was telling people, you have to maintain your medicine, but I did not realize that I was also practically telling them so that your disease will also be maintained. So we call it maintenance medicine. Now, disclaimer, for maybe some people could see this because we are live now on Facebook and we are also being recorded. I'm not saying you stop your medications right here, right now. All I'm saying is my journey of transformation from a purely drug pusher physician into an educator, empowerer who began to empower people to take control of their health. Honestly, it was a very difficult journey until now. It was not easy. That's why when we had a practice session yesterday, I was joking to Betty, maybe among the four of us, including Gra, maybe I'm the most unconscious. trying to be conscious, trying to be conscious, but through my pain, through my fear, because when you say panic attack is actually a fear attack. So, but along the way, I learned to embrace that fear because I myself, I have felt the fear of other people, especially the patients who are pushed against the wall. They are bankrupt. They don't have money anymore. They were told to do this, do that. Very expensive medical treatments. So along the way, I learned to listen to the wisdom of the body and setting aside the little intellect that I have gathered through the years. Because I realized that knowledge is different from wisdom.
Yes.
Knowledge is intellect, wisdom is intelligence.
Yes.
So
Very
like
true.
us doctors, we gathered a lot of knowledge. That's why if you notice, our names become longer as time goes by, right? It used to be Romy Paredes in our birth certificate, and then it became MD, PhD, PTPT, until it became very, very long. And then we get so full in our head that we think we are that layer upon layer upon layer. And then eventually I could not breathe anymore because of panic attacks. And then I realized that what I thought I would be the layers that I will be creating in my life, but the more unhappy I become. So I became more happy when I found teachers along the way. I have a lot of teachers. And tonight, he just confirmed through Messenger that he's joining us, the founder of Maya Earth Village, Philippines.
Wonderful.
He will join us at around 8 o'clock. So, Grant, look for him later. He's just there. He's in Maya. He just messaged me that he just arrived Maya Earth Village. So I hope Pai could join us a little bit later. We wrote the book together, Transformation Medicine, Pathways to Becoming Your Own Best Doctor. And in fact, I gave Betty a gift and Josie. So
Thank
it's
you.
been a long and difficult process of unlayering, a long and difficult process of unlearning the things that I have learned. Because what I learned basically in medical school is we learn to label you with a diagnostic name, with a diagnosis. For example, we learn to label you, oh, you have systemic lupus erythematosus. What the heck is that from the perspective of the patient? Then we were trained to give you medicine, like a steroid. For example, just the simple hypertension. We diagnose you as, oh, sir, oh, mom, you have essential hypertension. It's as if essential means you need to have hypertension. Essential hypertension. And then we give you medicine like Neo block, Calci block, Terra block, Halo block for the rest of your life. And then people keep coming back. And then I realized we're not actually, intuitively, we are not on the side of the sick and the dying. We are on the side of, I don't know, because we are only treating the symptom. So to me, treating the symptom is knowledge, treating the root cause is wisdom. To me now, a symptom, whatever symptom comes from your body, it is just the message of your body to stop you, to slow you down, to change you, and to transform you. Maybe that is my definition of conscious transformation as far as a doctor is concerned. Learning to listen to the intuitive wisdom of the body rather than just listening to the intellectual information that has already been embedded in my head.
What Dr. Romy has just said resonates 100% with myself as well. Over the years, when I practice as a retail pharmacist, I noticed that my patients never got any healthier with medication. In fact, they expanded, they started to take more and more medication. And I also reflected a lot on this advice that the pharmacists tend to give to the patient, and that is, please watch your diet, please eat healthy. So one day it just hit me, and I said, what do my patients understand from when I tell my patients eat healthy and take care of their diet? More often than not, they will just go home and revert back to their old eating habits. And as long as they eat unconsciously, not knowing what actually constitute healthy eating, their health will not get any better. And Dr. Romy, I'm sure you will agree that health is not just about the body. Health means an entire blueprint of health involves the body, the mind, and our spirit.
That's right.
And that part led me to realize that consciousness also means to be aware and to know experientially how these things, these components actually affect our health. So consciousness is actually a very big word, just like what Gra said. It's a very big word. I would say for myself, I'm just slowly becoming conscious, thanks to Betty, okay, who has come into my life, and then she has prodded me here and there, and then helped take a lot of blinkers off my blinkers from my vision. Then realizing that there are a lot of things around us, in this physical world that is out of my radar. So coming back to the part about health, uh, when I graduated, I thought health was just about this body. And it was very natural for me to think that every ill will be cured by a pill. But as I practiced and I read and I kept myself open and I learned, and I realized that no, there has to be more to it. And that openness, I guess that is also one way of saying that I started to become more and more conscious. Then I realized that my mind, how I keep my mind, how I keep my spirit, everything affects my health. So the main thing that I realized that I need to help my patients is to let them understand that it is so imperative that they begin this journey. They want to start to become a student to understand themselves. So it's actually a process. It's a continuous process. It's not something that we outsource to the pharmacists or we outsource to the doctors. The medical system, the current medical system, has its role to play in various situations, in various emergency medical conditions. But more often than not, a lot of these non-communicable diseases or degenerative diseases, lifestyle diseases, I call them, are things that we inflict unconsciously upon ourselves. So I guess this is a very good platform where we can speak up and then let more people realize that it's important for them to take responsibility, and how this individual understands himself or herself would also translate into how this individual would engage and involve himself and herself with others, other people, as well as the natural world. So the subject about the natural world affecting our health is also no rocket science. The water we take, we drink, the air we breathe, and then the food that we take that grows upon the soil would definitely be impacting our health. Everybody knows about pollution in all forms and various methods, and they know that it's getting into our food chain, and unwittingly we could be also consuming it. So anyway, that one is another topic, a huge topic. But basically, essentially, everything is connected. I mean, this is realizing that everything is connected is also one level of consciousness as well. So how are we to use this awareness and then make changes in our lives, whether in a community, whether as a nation, whether as a family? That will be another topic that we can open for further discussion.
Okay, may I expand here?
Yes, Betty.
Yes. When I was living in Darwin, I met Filipinas who were married to white Australians. They were very mature. Filipinas, and they were actually market gardeners growing food organically. And one of them gave me a book about growing herbs in your own backyard. And this book was from the Philippines by a Filipino doctor, because at that time, even in the 1990s, you were very well aware that most people cannot afford medicines. But if you have these herbs in your backyard, this is where you don't need, doctors. And the knowledge of this, really, I mean, I have reached that stage now. Actually, the other thing that I'm very involved in is to stop all this spraying of herbicides, pesticides. It is ruining, the vegetation. Is poisoning everything. But naturally, when nature grows, there are a lot of medicinal culinary herbs that we can just pick. So in places where there's been rain, and I know that it has not been herbicidal, in the morning, yesterday morning, I'm actually now in Johor. I'm not living in Singapore. I'm Singapore born, but I cannot be confined to Red Dot Singapore. So what I did was, even in Josephine's little garden, I picked what they call pagaga, and had a leaf of that. I picked a raw leaf from the mulberry. If there's a ripe fruit, I'll take that. There's just so many things. And the blue flower, her mother just cooked it for lunch. The blue, the cowpea flower. So many of these things are actually growing wild. But because of the way that we have destroyed them, they are our medicines and our food. So.
Thank you, Betty. It seems that before we are able to even talk about being conscious as a community, there is this journey that needs to be done back to the self.
Yes.
Self-healing, the self-knowing yourself, your own history, your own body, and getting to know your own wisdom. So I have a question maybe for Dr. Romy and for Josie, but Betty also has an amazing journey through self-healing. So what would it mean for a person to become their own doctor, Dr. Romy and even Josie? Does it mean that we need to go into hospitals? We don't need to trust anyone anymore? We only chew on plants from now on? What does it mean to become your own doctor?
For me, it means you don't come and see me anymore. And I don't have a job anymore, so I have to change job.
Spot on, doctor.
In fact, during the pandemic, I stopped for 6 months straight. Just purely, I did not go to my clinic. I just recently went back, and I realized maybe the pandemic is a loud message to everyone. You take care of yourself. You take care of your health. Because, so what does it mean? It really means, because when you just rely on the doctor, for example, then you just, how often do you see the doctor? You just see the doctor once in a while, and then so it means you are in charge. You are in command. You are in the driver's seat of your health. It means every meal you are aware whether it is good for your body or not. It means every day you are fully aware. It is health by choice, not health by chance. See, a lot of sick people who come and see us is health by chance. By chance means they are eating or living unhealthy lifestyle unconsciously every day. Then eventually, they get sick. So to me, the sickness is nature's way of waking up a person to be aware. to be awake, to be conscious. So that's my opinion. Josie.
Okay. Okay. I think basically I totally agree with what Dr. Romy has just said. I think essentially, right, I think we really need to ask ourselves some very difficult questions. And that is, how much do we really understand about ourselves? And how much do we really understand how this body works? The participants to actually, you know, uh, dive deep down and then become another pharmacist or become another doctor, garner that type of level of knowledge and things. Uh, there are a lot of simple, what do you call that, knowledge or simple avenues by which we can actually have a deeper understanding of ourselves. Things doesn't have to be complicated. This is what I've realized over the years. In fact, right now, I marvel at the fact that at this point in my life, I could see things so easily, so clearly, when I couldn't see this same stuff 20 over years after I graduated. And that is the things that make up our good health are just common sense things. It's just a question of whether we are willing to be responsible for it and then to engage with this process in a fun way, in a happy way. So I still have to emphasize that how important it is that we have this willingness to do the work. And when I say do the work, it doesn't have to be laborious. In fact, it can be a very fun and rewarding journey. Take it like we become the student of life. So as you embrace more unknowns about yourself, it is like, opening up the gift bag just to see what's inside the gift bag. So essentially, that is my that's where I always hold myself. That is, try to understand more about myself, because as I understand more about myself, it's easier for me to understand my patients and people around me. And I have to bring this topic up. For me, yoga has always been very helpful in helping me to expand this level of consciousness. And part of the practice actually involves the mindfulness practice. That means we sit down and be quiet and we go inward. And again, this is not taught in the mainstream school, but in fact, it has always been mentioned and emphasized by the teachers of various traditions. So some people may pass it off as mumbo jumbo, but I again, like I said, from my own experience, I've kept myself open, and I realized that meditation is a very important skill that we need to pick up. Betsy, or anyone else?
I have no doctor, and I've got no need of any doctor. Because I'm very, very conscious. Even when we first had the lockdown, in fact, a lot of people didn't even realize where the fresh air comes from. They actually literally locked themselves in a house with no sunlight, with aircon on, and they went to buy food, all the packaged frozen foods, a lot of meats, and they just ate that, and then all they did for exercise was and then push the console to watch the YouTubes to be entertained. And then what happened was, when the lockdown was lifted, and this is for sure, the older people in particular, when they started to venture out, they actually had such bad falls because all their limbs atrophied. The muscles all went like jelly. So they had very serious falls and landed in a hospital because they didn't even know that you have to move. And I keep saying, God gave us the limbs to move. For me, it is Qigong. And my soul brother, Dr. Amir Farid Isahak, who I think might join us, he was an obstetrician and gynecologist trained in Brisbane. And just like you, he said, I didn't educate myself to be a drug pusher. Romy, his journey, he's older than you. Dr. Amir Farid is now 66, but he looks like 44, and he has the fitness of someone 34.
I think he's here with us right now, so maybe we can call on him a little bit later.
Yes, but
Dr.
you know
Amir,
that
yes.
Amir is here.
there was an attempt by an oncologist to sue him. Do you know that? Even in Malaysia,
really?
yes.
Yeah.
It is, I don't know, is it easier in the Philippines to do what you're doing?
It's also not easy, but we have an alternative medicine law in the Philippines.
Really?
Yes, there's a law. I
see. Because somebody called Dr. Ian Lee of the Biopolis, who I just featured in a very small way in my book, last year was struck off the medical registrar in Singapore. The medical body in Singapore is very powerful. They have the license to kill. And after that, those who they have killed still thank them with bouquets and you know, it is ridiculous. But the moment, you know, you're a natural healer, you're called somebody who sells snake oil, right? I'm sure you've heard of that.
All right, thank you. So it seems that then becoming your own doctor is about exercising. It has to do a lot with our own routines and how do we treat our bodies and our minds and how we get to know. So thank you for sharing some of these strategies, yoga practices, and other practices. Yes, Qigong and everything. Dr. Romy, I remember you had the walk with the doctor, right? Every Sunday, I think. Yes, last year, I remember that project when it started. So it does have to do a lot to going back to the body and connecting with the body, knowing what the pain is and where it is coming from, but also knowing that it is not coming just from the inside, right? It's coming also from the outside and from the inputs, from the influences that we get from the environment around us. And since we talk about when we bring up the environment and how things are happening around us, we need to talk about the urban setting and the community setting that is living and going on, the urban and rural setting nowadays. So how could we find ways, or how would it be that such a community that is aware of the body and that is aware of every impact that is coming from every sources, from the processed food, from the meat, from how we consume art, from how we produce things nowadays, how is it that such a community would grow in an urban setting more aware of what it is? Because I think it is important also to give some insights to people, since a lot of us live in the city and most of us cannot just run away to the mountains. What would it be then to bring up this awareness and this new lifestyle to the city, but also connecting it to nature and creating such a community? So I guess the question or the focus now would be more addressing to creating such a community in both levels. I know Betty has a lot of experience creating or engaging into communities in the rural setting. So if she can help us, guide us with some of her own experiences of what it was like to create a community. And then Dr. Romy and Josie, they can actually help us balance. How do we find such a community in an urban setting? How am I in a city going to get to connect with nature and with my body when I need to wake up at 7 a.m., get the metro, go to my job and everything? Well, not now much because of COVID, but I guess this is something that we should really talk about when you think of conscious living nowadays.
Okay, since I'm starting, I'd like to share with you all. I met a couple of farmers in Singapore, or ex-farmers, who had cancer. And then, of course, they were told by the doctors that they were going to be given this drug, etc., etc., etc. And for some reason, they knew that that won't heal them. So what they did was they actually illegally started farms under a big flyover, and I visited that. They actually planted many, many plots, and they just ate from, organically, of course, they just ate from what they grew. But they were very, very shy when I wanted to, as a journalist, to interview them, because they were very afraid of being reported to the government that they were illegally squatting. That's the word, squatting there. But they healed. So it just shows that if there's a will, there's a way. Okay, right now in Singapore, there are many, many areas of open fields that are just wasted. Even in Johor also, nothing is being done there. And even among flats and all that, just find a place where you can grow what you need every day, the herbs that you need to eat. The bigger things, you will of course have to rely on an organic grower in your midst. But in a suburban setting, it's possible. But in the city center, that's not possible. And the city center is actually the business center. So in the suburbs, a lot of people have at least a bit of a garden. Even if they're living in a high rise, they have a balcony, a terrace. Now, I have a friend called Andrew Tay. Andrew is an eco gardener, a permaculture, and one time in his little one-room flat in Singapore, in Toa Payoh, he collected seedlings of 3 types of endangered forest plants, 3 types. And he grew 700 seedlings. And he grew them on his corridor. And he donated that to the NParks, the National Park Board, to be replanted. So if someone like him in a one-room flat can grow forest plant seedlings, it's just a matter of whether we have the will, whether we want to or not.
Yossi.
I mean, to be very honest, right? I don't have any experience in starting a community activity whereby we get the people together in that way. We don't have Betty and I actually actually it was actually Betty's idea, and I actually collaborated with Betty. We started the Starseed Eco Solar Village. That was one of our attempts to form this nucleus of people, like-minded people, and hopefully we could actually expand it into communal activities. But unfortunately, the eco village had to be given up, and due to various reasons. So my experience is very, very limited in that aspect. But in my practice for the last 17, 18 years, I offer emotional healing therapy to my patients, and because this is one avenue that is not looked into by a lot of people seeking out healing. Consuming medication and even changing your diet may not be enough. So I spend a lot of time with my patients in this aspect, and usually trying to convince them or persuade them to begin this journey. And if they should need my help, I'll be there to help them. But if they want to begin this journey on their own, the intelligence within themselves will also guide them to seek out the relevant people that will help them in their emotional healing. So this is my little contribution to whoever connects with me at my practice. So there was a time, Gra, I have to share this as well. There was a time when I felt really overwhelmed, when I felt so much pain all around me, my patients and my own, family and friends and whatever I see on the social media. I even talked to Betty and I said, how can we continue? How can we function when we know there's so much suffering all around us? And I sought the answer through my practice, and I realized that we can only do so much at our level, and we can only help one person at a time, and whoever that's we become that small light, that pockets of light in every every part of the world. If everyone takes care of themselves and really begin this journey, and as we become stronger and stronger, and we become wiser and wiser and more conscious, we take in more people under our fold and we point everyone towards that direction. For me, this is my very simplified way of uh, looking at how I fit into the big picture. That keeps me sane, that keeps me focused, that keeps me uh, what do you call that, engaged with what I want to do with my little offerings to make this world a little bit better through my vocation, through my work, through whatever activities that I participate in, through the conversations that I have with my friends and even with my customers and even to strangers. And please allow me to share also recently, Betty, together with a few like-minded friends, we organized a self-healing retreat in one of our friends' uh, home, and he has a farm where he lives in a small place. So I actually told Betty, I said, I'm so glad that we have this group of close-knit friends. So this is also an example of how we can make an effort at our level to actually form this nucleus of friends, and we consciously use that retreat to actually empower ourselves. It's no longer about going on a holiday where you check into a five-star restaurant, a five-star hotel, and then you just eat and buy and eat and buy and shop. Instead, we were doing things like we were living in a community. We went to the farms, we visited everybody's farm. Whoever was more conversant in herbs, they would share, and then we would harvest, we would forage. So for me, it was a very enriching experience, and I really appreciate that kind of retreat, that kind of a holiday. And when I was driving back, when I was reflecting on this, I just said that, yeah, we can, if everyone would organize this kind of a holiday, it would be actually good for the community. Imagine bringing the kids into these settings and then the parents actually spend time with the children in the garden, getting dirty, getting muddy, enjoying nature out in the sun. So it's very enriching for the whole family, for each and every one of us. So, Gra, in that sense, I guess that is my own little experience.
All right. Thank you, Josie. So, me, I live in a city center, Cebu City, Philippines, very urban. So, and I just noticed that my good friend Pai is already here in this Zoom room. So I would like to call him now because in terms of community, he has more right to speak than me. So, Brother Pai, are you here? I can see you.
Yeah.
Can you unmute yourself and open your video if it's okay, or it's up to you?
It's totally dark where I'm at, so the video doesn't really matter. I'm like totally in the dark.
You're totally in the
But
dark. In Maya Earth Village, right? You're in Maya Earth Village.
I'm in the mountain. Yeah.
You're in the mountain. All right. So you don't have to.
Wow.
Okay, go ahead.
What's the question? What's the topic? Sorry, just joined in. Hi from the Philippines to everyone from Palawan. What are we talking about?
We're talking about community.
Yeah,
Okay.
Pai, we were just bringing up some insights on how to create or how to start a community,
Okay.
or even giving some insights on how to be in a community in the urban setting, since there are a lot of people from cities here joining us today. So how to be a community in cities, or what would it mean, find your own community, something around that.
Okay. Yeah, I love the question. So I've experienced so much of the backdrop in Singapore and Malaysia, having been in both countries for about 30 to 40 times. I can't even count. And I've actually worked on various possible projects in Kuala Lumpur and Penang and in Singapore. I've been called to do advisement for possible transition phases, and some have actually succeeded. I haven't visited the countries in more than a year now, so I'm actually interested in the Southeast Asian contribution to defining what community might mean. And right now, I'm not interested in creating a distinction between the urban and the rural. I'm interested in sensing what is the more basic fundamentals. Considering, yeah, I live in integrity. I live in the mountains on solar, um, and as much as possible, not having to buy anything from the outside.
Yay.
Yes.
but
You're a big fan of baking.
We envy you.
yeah, I know. But to be honest about it, though, I'm a really big fan of the possible awakening processes in the paradoxical, especially in a place like Singapore, where I do feel there might be some hidden ground in the aspiration, because I've been there so many times, especially Singapore, and just the spiritual possibilities I feel is maybe speaking loads. Where I'm coming from is okay, like I've worked a lot with the Global Eco Village Network and the permaculture communities, and there's this interesting point. The very head of Jen speaks that when you look at the people who have done a lot of these trainings in eco village design and permaculture, they've noticed that very few projects actually make it. It's like you're lucky at 10% if ever there was a chance. So what they realized was people who are interested in these, there's something to do with the resistance to change.
Mm.
And it feels like there has to be a movement that goes beyond just the obvious going into the project. It's like there's a spiritual element that seems to be missing in people who go straight into like projects of going to the land that aren't able to like they don't really go into the healing process as much as like for me, like Singapore is a spiritual hub, just like Bali, just like Kuala Lumpur. And there's a really big audience. Like people really devote and invest so much energy in inner work. And when here in my homeland in Palawan, it's organic by default. Like people are very organic because the carbon footprint is really, really low, and there's not that much need for things like pesticides and artificial fertilizers. And maybe because it's so relaxed, people don't really do as much of the spiritual process as much as I have been exposed to and have learned like so much in the paradox that I have seen in places like Hong Kong, in Taipei, in Singapore, in Malaysia. So I feel like there has to be a linkage somehow where it's kind of hard to word. I read a book, one of my favorite books, ecologically speaking, was, I forget the author to be honest, but it was called Peak Everything. It was talking about the energy resource depletion paradigm that listed all the countries that bore ironies and paradoxes. Singapore, in fact, was stated to have the highest carbon footprint per capita in the entire world. Um, Yet, when I was reading this book, I was struck by the irony that Singapore had the most spiritual resource that I've ever seen everywhere I've traveled in the world. They seem to have the most to say. So I felt that we can't really measure resource simply through material aspects. That maybe because there's such a yearning in places in the world such as these, there's so much wealth in the material ways in these places in the world there's also like something embedded. So my take on it, community wise, is in Southeast Asia we have the best of both worlds. We have South Asia and we have East Asia coming into a meeting ground. And I think the difference between the Philippines and Malaysia and Singapore is that in the Philippines everyone intermarried and just crossed intersections with each other. We're kind of a mix where you don't really see differentiations. But when you go to places like Singapore and Malaysia, it's so diverse and it didn't intermix. So there's a tradition, something very ancient, meeting headway with the north and the western parts of the world. So for southeast, the Philippines, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, places like these, there's something very brown. There's something so well integrated in our neck of the woods that is not exactly India, not exactly China, but is a very cohesive mixture of all of these that hasn't really found its own voice yet. It's going to find a gentle meeting ground that's maybe going to express a new sort of yoga or meditation that hasn't really been seen before. So I feel like emerging through these new spiritual traditions that are coming up in our places in the world, and more or less I'm coming from a confident place, because in the inner dance process that has emerged in our communities here in the Philippines, that's also actually grown so much in Singapore and Malaysia. When I brought our healing modalities in Singapore and Malaysia, it just exploded. It's like I saw aspects of ourselves that I just couldn't believe, that how could there just be so much power, wisdom. But emerging from the nonverbal, though, it's like it had so much to say, not through words but through something really new, something so raw and something so fresh. I feel like we need to find our identity, and it can't just be through the literal. It needs to hold space in a very childlike way, and we need to find ways to connect with this. I feel that bears some kind of weird intelligence. Like for me, as a Filipino who's learning to find my own voice that begins with the inner work and the spiritual healing process that comes about. Like when I, coming from like a Southeast Asian identity, which is like a cultural identity, it's like a group thinking process that isn't so individualized as much as you would see in the American or the European. When I find my voice, it carries with it like the voice of the collective consciousness. It's a very powerful thing that I feel needs to be listened to. It needs to be heard, that hasn't really found the medium or the portal, historically speaking. So there has to be intellectual, like
Your audio is kind of
epistemological,
fading away.
educational. Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's the thing in the mountains. But anyway, sorry. I hope some of this is audible enough, and maybe that's a sign for
Can I
me to
just ask
say
a
I've kind of
question?
contributed.
Pi, I'm not very
Yes.
clear whether you lived for 1 year on that island on just coconuts, or is it 2 years? Dr. Romy says it's 2 years, and you have become a coconut head.
Now you can ask her. Okay,
Yeah,
you can ask him, Betty. You can ask him now.
What?
I would say maybe I would say maybe
Huh?
Yeah, okay, go
yeah,
ahead, Pai.
it's about a year and 10 months or something like that.
三个月的业绩啊！哦，在那个大
Yeah, I asked to unmute Meilu. Meilu, can you unmute, please? Okay, he's unmuted now. Okay, go ahead, Pai. 1 year, 10 months, Betty.
Pardon?
1 year, 10 months on coconut diet alone.
I see. Now, it's both nutritious as well as the detox, right? So,
Yes.
did you have a healing crisis? Because
Yes.
you did.
Super yes. Okay, like I want to announce for now that the Philippines is the second largest producer of coconuts in the world.
yes.
Indonesia is number
Yeah.
one. So it does speak about true wealth, but it's a good question. I feel coconuts is the highest source of nutrition based on the electrolytes levels. It doesn't. No other food on earth has nearly the same amount of electricity in foods in the world. I think the next online would be rose essential oil, would be the one that has nearly the same amount of electricity in any known foods on the planet. So the healing crisis of it is actually not so much getting weak, but it's getting used to holding that much electricity in the body, because it would hit your nervous system more than anything else. So your brain has to find a fine tuning that would be okay with it. It's almost like putting your finger into a socket and and being okay with it. So you
Okay.
would feel very lightheaded, and you feel like you're not really grounded in many ways. And it's very hard to be around people in the first stages of the process. So after I went back to the world, after being on a coconut diet, it is very, very hard. In fact, like I needed to go into another crisis coming from coconuts and then being in the world afterwards. I actually had to eat some of normal food again just to ground myself and get used to being in the world. It's very vibrational, I would say. It has something to do with electricity more than anything else.
More of vibrational than nutritional.
Yeah.
You ate as much of the flesh, the meat. Meat?
After a while, Betty, you don't even get interested in the meat because there came a point where I was eating maybe only 3 or 4 coconuts a week, because even coconuts got really heavy for me. I became partially like on a water diet, and then I lived partially a breatharian lifestyle. I lived almost a month without eating or drinking anything after a certain period, and
Like
then I had to.
like a breatharian.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing.
Because Betty is planning to do a coconut fast.
But
By
Yeah.
the way, for those just excuse me, Pai. For those who don't know Pai, Pai is a good friend and is the founder of Maya Earth Village Palawan. He's also an author of several books and he's a good friend. And in fact, he's one of the people who have disturbed me energetically. Who have disturbed me energetically because we're coming from different backgrounds, but very wonderful. I miss you, Pai.
Miss you too, and
Pai,
everyone else.
can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead, Josie.
Yes.
Two questions, okay. First question is, what inspired you to go back to your homeland to actually live like that? And then second thing is, after you've gone through what you've gone through, I'm sure you have come to realize certain things. Can your experience be used to guide or to help others?
Yes. I don't know if you've heard of the inner dance movement.
I have roughly read about it in the, I think, the book, I think. But please share.
Okay.
Please share.
Okay. So what happened was I experienced a deep healing process in my solitude, and I became a healer. My body started to move on its own, and there was a transference. Now the this is kind of historical because right now the movement kind of became a global process. It's something that's pretty much a common practice in many places in several continents. And it's not something I really organized. It's something that had a natural occurrence, something I just witnessed. There's something about the body that seems to be holding a wisdom, a nonverbal wisdom that wishes to almost make itself known. And especially maybe in the Chinese, there's a lot of ancestral data that that lives inside of us. And the more we are living in our minds, the minds that filter anyway, we kind of live in the world, and we're not able to understand how ancient we are. I feel like a lot of our Earth as consciousness needs to be refounded somehow with our relationship with the Earth as the body. So, for me to be very direct, when we experience what some people might call a Kundalini rising phenomenon, Shakti or Kuan Yin energy kind of just takes over us, and it somehow awakens as a mysterious dance that speaks through mudras or speaks through codes. I think in Singapore and Malaysia, people experience it as a kind of light language where we go into like very heightened states of awareness, going into some kind of dream state. So I have been interested in many parts of the world kind of spontaneously going into these heightened states, both in the spiritual and in the scientific. And yeah, I feel like this is really just waiting, and people are looking for a contextualization that somehow grants permission that it's okay to lose our control mechanism so that we could surrender into aspects of the divine feminine in a very patriarchal, very masculine oriented world, so I feel like, especially in the Asiatic, where we are coming from, this is largely part of our heritage, and we're basically healers by default. Like we like to touch and be touched, both emotionally, and we've lost somehow our ways of connecting with each other.
Yes,
So
agree.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, totally agree.
So if just granted enough context and permission that would be heard by the left and the right hemispheres of the brain, I think it's just going to happen. But the context has to be a meta narrative that would be acceptable to all of our cultures, I feel. And I think this is still what we're waiting for, something that could be heard by the medical community, that could be heard by the educational system, like the governance structures and so on and so forth. So I do feel like the ecological movement kind of holds this, because for me, an eco village holds all the chakra systems, dimensionally speaking. Like the red might hold the farm or the hospital system, the orange might hold permaculture, the yellow might hold the economic system coming into sacred economics, the green might be like the family systems, blue might be everywhere dialogue or communication happens, the school being, and the indigo and the violet being uh, anything to do with like whole systems thinking, which could be government or spiritual traditions and so on and so forth. So how we could witness a weaving of all these structures so that we don't need to just perceive the eco-village as an intentional community the way it's being held in the West, but because in Asia we're all about the traditional community as well. How could we witness the family structures that are so bound and so closely intact? It needs to somehow start there, because as someone who has been within an eco-village process for 10 years now, it's very hard to see people leaving the confines of their comfort zones because they need to also take their existing values with them, a lot of which are so held within high context societies, like family systems and so on and so forth. So I feel like Asia needs to redefine the eco-village as well. It needs to belong within the system. It cannot build escapist
Yes.
societies in a way,
Sorry, we are almost ending. Is Dr. Amir Farid here? Can we hear from him?
Oh yeah. No. He messaged me privately that he's in a dinner, but he's
Yes.
happy just to listen tonight. So
I see. Okay.
he's happy just to listen tonight.
All right. Because I was just thinking that this could be the start of a Southeast Asian-based group of alternative doctors who feel comfortable to share with each other, because I know the ones in Singapore, they're very afraid, and featured
definitely we will keep in touch with with you, Josie, Dr. Amir. I think you know Dr. Amir, Betty, right? So thank you very much, Pai, for your time tonight. Are you still there? Yeah, I still. So
yes, I want to answer a question by Dr. Amir posted in the chat. Dr. Amir, you wrote an article about inner dance many years ago. So to answer your question, I didn't live in Cebu, but you went to Cebu and you heard about it from there. So actually, I think we may know each other in some indirect ways. So this is such an interesting juncture, just to answer your question. I don't know if you share.
One final question, Pai. The inner dance that you performed that came right out of you, it was something that just happened spontaneously, right?
Mm.
Would you attribute it because of your heightened level of energies that you experience due to your solitude, and also the food the coconut diet that you were living on?
It was a host of many reasons, but I feel like, to be very direct, I feel like the thing that influenced me the most, that brought about this awakening process, is actually being away from other humans. I feel like there's something in our language brain that gets bound up by obligations, restrictions in playing roles, that when you leave human society for a while, you find yourself unbounded by the human, and we almost become the earth. We almost go into something primal that we have forgotten and must remember somehow. So to be honest, like, okay, raw food, coconuts, vegetarianism, being in nature, solitude, I would feel like being away from human beings was the most scary, but the most healing.
Yes.
I'm sorry if it sounds really raw, but we desire that, like some island somewhere where we can just escape for a day or a year or a decade.
yeah.
I wish
Totally
that for
agree.
others.
Wow. Thank you.
Thank you,
very
Pai.
much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much, Pai, for joining us tonight. He's not
You're
supposed.
welcome.
Yeah. I was hoping he could join us tonight at the latter part, and indeed he was able to join us. So thank you very much. Bye. I miss you. So back to Gra to wrap it up. We have 5 minutes to wrap it up. Gra.
Oh, Dr. Amir says, thank
You're the
you.
moderator.
Right. I think we're actually almost finished. So I would love to hear if anyone has any questions to any of you guys.
Yeah, I
Because
think
it's
I
already
see someone in
8:28.
the chat from who's this? From Ki Yu Wong. How do you advise your patient? I think it's a question to Josie, but maybe I could also answer.
Yeah.
How do you advise the patient? Vaccine alone will not bring us the ultimate cure for viral infections. I agree. In fact, well, it's my personal opinion, but I'm not, focusing on just because I don't believe there is just one single bullet that will solve this pandemic. Because if there is, and there will be, then it is again an intellectual process, an intellectual solution, not an intuitive solution. It's treating the symptom, not the root cause. That's why I tell my friends, if ever there will be a vaccine, let's not be the first. Let's be the last.
I feel that from our creator, this COVID actually has a mind of its own and intelligence, because what it has done is that by locking down humans and human activities, nature has started to come back to thrive in certain small places.
That's true.
So, and we need nature. So as long as we keep on, poisoning, digging, building, we need the COVID. And COVID is God sending us this, what do you call it? Yeah. You call it a disease or whatever it is, but it's necessary to stop us, to tie us.
Yes, I think it's a deep, profound wisdom of nature to put us into a stop so that we could allow ourselves into a beautiful transformation. So I have a last question for you, Betty and Gra. Now I'm the moderator now. And Josie. So last words. And my last question is, like especially for Betty, because you define yourself as free and fearless.
Yes.
Share something about that.
Well, free in the sense that materially, I need very, very little to live, because everything, there's a song, the best things in life are free. The best things in life are free, the sun, the moon, everything. So why must we start to charge for everything? Now, I have two universal teachers. One of them is Sri Satya Sai Baba. And he has created free universities, free hospitals, free water projects, because all these things, he says, cannot be monetized. They are free. So he set that example that God has given us everything free. Why are we charging? So that's the other thing. So I'm fearless because I don't need money. Yes, in fact, my fear is now, for some reason, we had to stop Josie. She pulled a tendon or whatever during yoga when we were doing that retreat.
During the retreat.
Yes.
Recently, yeah.
I need to go and get an MRI to confirm what I think it is.
No, Betty, not an MRI.
Or whatever.
Not an MRI. I said that I when I get back to the urban setting, I may need to see my orthopedic friend so that I can confirm what is going on.
We stopped her because we were in close proximity with her. The moment she steps into a clinic, you know what will happen? We will all be pulled in to be tested. So we said, no, you don't. So in the end, she went to a Chinese sensei who gave her homeopathic treatment.
I also went to a friend. That was also another good friend. He's a TCM practitioner and also a homeopathic practitioner. And after a few treatments, right, I recovered from the stretched tendon. Yes.
Okay, may I just bring us back to what we started at the beginning? The reason is also when I met Thomas and Sui, I was thinking they are doing already what we should be doing. So I'm planning to join them. But today we had the very disturbing news that the government in Malaysia is imposing more lockdowns here, there, everywhere. So I'm like the Scarlet Pimpernel, you know. I'm just managing to escape Johor. Johor is going to be locked down from the 9th of November. So I'm just managing to escape back to Pahang. And on the way, I will be checking out in this place where I'm going to rent it, and then Thomas will build for me this place, which you all saw just now, the recycle building, 2 stories. And I'm going to create a children's fantasy garden, you know, so that it will have a lot of beauty. It will not be the same as the rustic buildings or eco houses that I had previously. And but what now, my only worry is that Su Yi, who is Thomas's wife, she's expecting a baby in the middle of December. And there's no midwife because they're not allowed, no doctors. She doesn't even dare to tell her mother, Thomas, who's a banker, is going to be the midwife. No, because the moment she goes to a hospital, she will be tested. And even if you're asymptomatic, she's not sick or anything, she will be quarantined. She and the baby. So she cannot see her 3.5-year-old, you know, Isha. She cannot see her husband. So we are all very fearful of being dragged into the hospital. That's my fear only, my only fear, to run away from hospitals.
Yeah. All right. There's another question here. My thoughts. Would modern medicine exist collaboratively with natural therapies? And coming from the medical perspective, as a doctor, I think yes, especially for example, if you have an acute condition, like for example, you have an accident or a trauma, anything that is acute, it needs acute intervention. Like, you know, long time ago, a stab wound patient was brought to me, and I told them, wrong number. You're in the wrong place. Don't go to a wellness center. If you have a stab wound, you go to the hospital. So, and yes, there are emergency situations. So, I hope I answered Binora and Nadeso. They can coexist collaboratively. So, I would like to ask my wife to say some, insights about what she has heard for tonight. We are in the closing already. So, yes, sir. And then Gra can wrap it out.
No, actually, I want to ask Betty and Josie, actually, because they've been through a lot of stages already, like being a mom. Also, they are also working moms, I believe, and they're married. So how does one become a conscious human being in the midst of everyday life? So that's what I want to ask.
Well, for me, I became conscious only when my son was already 19 years old. And, for him, I'm a crazy mom, okay? And I think he thinks, Dr. Romy, although you...
Also a crazy doctor.
Yes, you're also a crazy doctor.
That's why we meet.
Yes, so I didn't have the responsibilities. And I believe because in 1995, I published a book which is channeled through a spirit, not a spirit guide, channeled through a medium. It was trans-channeling. And through that, I'm a volunteer soul. So that means I've come down on this earth on this mission to try and have awaken people. And so it turns out that they were trying to wake me up, but I didn't wake up earlier. And by the time I woke up at the age of 49, I didn't have responsibilities. So I could go straight on it. Whereas Josie earlier on, and right now also, she still has a daughter who is still studying, you see. Although,
Okay, let me share, Betty.
Yeah, go ahead, Josie.
My awakening. I mean, I wouldn't. I don't even. I don't even know whether if I can actually use it as awakening or I'm fully awakened. But I do feel experientially that I know more about myself now than I knew myself maybe 30 years ago. And I, for the first part of my parenting years, right, I would say that they were just based on whatever information that, like what Dr. Robbie said, intellectual information and knowledge that I gathered from my reading, because I'm an avid reader. So, so everything was very intellectualized. But later on, as I encountered challenges, I went to the books, I went to the teachers, I went to programs, workshops, and then I practiced, because I'm an ardent, I'm a keen participant. That means I'm willing to put into practice what the teachers have taught me, and then God willing, they have actually helped me a lot. And my kids actually have been very, very instrumental in my own journey. And we should never underestimate our children, and that to think that as a parent we know more about life than them is actually a huge mistake.
Yeah,
More
it's the
often,
opposite.
more often than not, the kids actually, because they are younger and they do have a certain element of intelligence within them. So there were a lot of interactions as they were growing up, and now my kids are already adults. They are still helping me to heal.
Wow.
So that's the wonderful part.
How many
And
children you have?
I have three grown-up
Three
children.
children. Yeah.
Yes,
Wonderful.
yes. And recently, I just had a very nice talk with my eldest son, and as we were chatting, and things, that were really out of my radar actually just surfaced, and it was a very healing experience for me and him to 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 actually have that conversation. Most of the time, a lot of things are just swept underneath the carpet. So for the longest of time, I've always had this approach where I realized that I know very little. I talk to my kids. I say, Mommy doesn't know. Can you help? Or how you feel? Just to take them as my friends, especially when they are already grown up. But when they were kids, it was more of me, my mom, and the father parenting the children. But now when they are older, when I realize that I know so little about life, sometimes I need to let the kids show the way.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you, Josie.
yeah, yeah.
So
Thank you.
before we show some before we end, I would like to ask Gra to whatever the closing whatever remarks. We are
Yes, sure, Doc.
we are 10 minutes over time. And then after Gra, as we go to a close, we're going to play a short video, very short, just 2 minutes, of the pictures sent to me by Betty of the whatever. So we're going to show that. And I would like to greet Wai Ching Lee. You're here. Thank you for joining us tonight. Hello, Wai Ching. How are you?
I'm waiting.
Yeah. Okay, Gra, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Thank you everyone for the sharing. My internet went a little bit cuckoo by the end, so sorry if I felt a little bit away, but I feel that what we could gather, like the biggest highlight of the discussion would be that consciousness is a process of reclaiming some sort of track back to you and to yourself. It's regaining, it's a constant process of regaining, reclaiming, rediscovering, unlayering the identity, what really is you, and what is really coming through you. It is not becoming conscious wouldn't be a process that would happen from day to night, or it's not even something that would happen from your own willingness. Oh, now I am conscious. It is more a process. It's a constant process as we grow through life, and as we start actually paying more attention to what we are and what we do, the tasks that we do on a daily basis, the products we buy, the land we are stepping on, the people we are connecting with. All of those, they are messages, they are signs, they are dialogues that we are constantly having with consciousness, and through that we can become, or we can regain all of what we've lost so much already throughout history, and how history has happened so far. When we look at how industrialization, globalization, and all of those stories, all of what happened, how we lost track of who we were when processed food became what we ate, when processed music became what we heard, and processed people became what we were connecting with. So it's kind of a process of
That's a good one.
processing ourselves. Deprocessing ourselves, de-digesting, or even digesting at the same time, and just claiming back all of that. And in a way, it felt that it was actually claiming time to tune into what we are. And I loved how spirituality took place, and regaining spirituality, or reconnecting uh, so spirituality is actually a way to embrace all of that, and to gain back the sense of a community, and the sense of actually what we are here to do. So thank you very much for all of your insights, for this beautiful conversation. And I guess if anyone has any further questions, you can just email or reach us on Facebook, or in other realms, dimensions, meditation. We're here.
Yes. Thank you, Gra, for that. So now I would like to share the screen as our
Thank
parting.
you.
Yeah, it's just a short video of what Betty has sent me. All right. So thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you, Wai
Thank
Ching.
you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
I, yeah.
Thank you, Gra. Thank you, Betty. Thank you,
Hi,
Josie.
Betty. Good night,
You
Dr.
Thank you.
Ramir,
Thank you.
yeah.
Ramir. Auntie Melia from Baguio City.
See.
My aunt.
Thank you.
Hi,
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you. See you on Wednesday, Renan.
Okay.
Okay, bye-bye. We had a great time.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.
See
Bye.
you
Bye.
in the Eco Village, Betty. All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.